Welcome everyone to our Oregon PERS retirement webinar. We're glad to have you and we're looking forward to an educational afternoon. I'd like to introduce you to Firenze Wealth Management. We are collectively a team that has over 120 years of experience working in holistic financial management. The things that we focus on with our clients are investing in savings for life's priorities, protecting the ones that you love, creating different retirement income strategies for our clients, maximizing Social Security benefits, establishing college savings plans, and understanding your distribution options. Today, we're going to be focusing on PERS, but the key part is our team and what we bring to the table. We are a team of 6 advisors and 7 support staff, all here to provide you with excellent service and lead you on your path to retirement. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of retirement planning, and a lot of different things go into this. We talk about risk management, inflation and taxes, and your primary sources of income in retirement. Today, we're obviously talking about PERS, but a lot more goes into it, including Social Security, supplemental savings like 403Bs, 457s, IRAs, and Roth IRAs, in addition to supplemental income such as rental income from properties. I'm going to pass it over now to Davis, and he's going to give us an intro on retirement benefits for PERS.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. So just a little bit of housekeeping at the top of our presentation here today. Like Sarah mentioned, we are going to be zeroing in on your PERS benefits, and there's some really key aspects of your PERS benefit that we want to make sure that you're able to walk away with from this presentation understanding. So some of the key topics that we're going to talk about today are the difference between the membership tiers. So depending on when you started as a PERS member, it could determine what your tier is going to be. Also, we're going to talk about the 2 separate and distinct parts of your PERS benefit. One is called your defined benefit, which is going to be more commonly referred to just as your pension. And the other is the defined contribution aspect of your PERS, which is your IAP account. And we'll talk a lot more about that as we go on through the presentation. We also want you to be able to understand what your eligibility is for retirement. How many years do you need to work before you can claim your benefit in its full amount? We'll also talk about some of the more significant impacts that legislatively have changed the system recently. And we'll also talk about how you can actually calculate your benefit and what determines the pension amount when you actually retire. And then we'll also talk about how you will receive your benefit. You're going to have some really key decisions that need to be made when you actually retire. And we'll talk about what those decisions are and maybe which one might be the right fit for you. So jumping right in here, we'll talk about the different membership tiers. Like I said, depending on when you were hired, your membership tier will be dictated by that date. So the first membership tier that we have is Tier 1. So any PERS member that was hired before the year of 1996 would be classified as a Tier 1 employee. And as a Tier 1 employee, there's some pretty important things for you to be aware of about your membership tier. First and foremost, like I mentioned, the eligibility for your normal retirement. So as a Tier 1 member, you have the ability to retire with your full benefit if you meet a couple of different criteria, or one or the other. The first is if you reach age 58. So if you're a Tier 1 member and you've reached age 58, you can retire with your full normal retirement benefit. Or if you've worked 30 years or you have 30 years of service credit as a Tier 1 member. So you could, in theory, retire prior to age 58 as long as you've acquired 30 years of service credit. You do have the ability to retire early, which would be considered at age 55 for general members. These numbers are a little bit different for police and fire PERS members. But since we're generally talking to general employees here today, we'll focus more so on those figures. But at age 55, you could claim a reduced benefit considered as your early retirement benefit. Now, that benefit will be penalized for each month that you're claiming early. So it's something that you really need to consider if you are planning on retiring prior to your normal retirement age. Tier 1 members also have, and you'll see this on your PERS statement that you receive each May, um, you have a regular and a variable account balance. Now, these two accounts were where your PERS contributions were being made prior to the year. There were some changes that were made to PERS in 2003. So contributions that you made prior to that year went into either this regular account or this variable account. And there's some distinct differences between the two. The regular account for Tier 1 members is a guaranteed interest account. Currently, it's guaranteeing 6.9% on an annual basis, but in previous years, that number was as high as 8% on an annual basis, a guaranteed amount. So a really powerful accumulation tool. You also have a variable account. Now that variable account is invested in the overall market. So in certain years, depending on market performance, it may be up or it may be down for the year. You also have the ability as a Tier 1 member to change or shift funds from the variable account to the regular account. And that's something that you may consider as you get closer to retirement. Um, and we're happy to talk with clients about that if that's something that makes sense for you. The next tier that was tier break that was um, created into the system is tier 2. And if you were hired after the year of 19 or after January 1st of 1996, all the way up until August 28th of 2003, you're classified as a tier 2 employee. Now there are tier 1 and tier 2 have a lot of similarities, but there's some important distinctions for us to be aware of. For Tier 2 members, your normal retirement age has shifted a little bit. We still retain that 30 years of service eligibility requirement. So if you have 30 years of service as a Tier 2 member, you can retire without an age requirement on your normal retirement. But your age limit for normal retirement has shifted up a couple of years to age 60. So if you don't have 30 years of service, but you are age 60, you can claim your normal retirement benefit as a Tier 2 employee. The figures for police and fire, like I mentioned, are a little bit lower, but early retirement remains at age 55. But the impact that you'll feel if you do choose to claim early retirement as a Tier 2 member will be slightly more heavily penalized just because there's more months that you would be claiming early. Relative to your normal retirement age. So that's something to be aware of. Tier 2 members also have a regular and a variable account that contributions prior to 2000 and really 2004 went into. The distinct difference between Tier 2 members' regular and variable account balances is that the regular account no longer has that guaranteed interest rate that's credited to it. The regular account for Tier 2 members is also a variable account, so it's invested in the overall market in years where the underlying investments go up in value. The regular account will increase in years where the underlying investments are down, the value will go down. And the same is true for the variable account as well for Tier 2. Now, this is where we saw some significant changes, and this is the last tier that was entered for the PERS system. In 2003, there were some significant changes that happened. The OPSERP tier was created. It stands for Oregon Public Service Retirement Plan. And all PERS members that were hired after August 29th of 2003, so many of you that are here with us today, are classified in the OPSERP tier. Now you'll notice that there's no longer a regular or a variable account balance, and that's because of some of the shifts that occurred in the IAP creation, which Kaylin will talk about a little bit later in this presentation. But the other significant change that we saw with the OPSERP tier is that there were pretty significant changes to our normal retirement eligibility timeline. And for OPSERP members, we now no longer have no age restriction with our 30 years of service. So even if we have 30 years of service as an OPSERP member, we also have to be age 59 or older to be able to claim our full retirement benefit. So That's one of the distinct changes between Tier 1, Tier 2, and OPSERT. The other age requirement moved from 60 to 65 for OPSERT members. So either you need to be age 65 to claim your normal retirement benefit, or you have to have 30 years of service and also be age 58 to claim that benefit. Early retirement still is an option at age 55. The penalty to do so is a more significant reduction in your overall normal retirement benefit, but it is still an option and something that you can be that you can claim if your situation requires. So the next thing we'll talk about is how these pension retirement benefits are actually calculated. And there are some different calculation factors depending on your tier. So tier one and tier two are grouped, and there are three different formulas that PERS runs for tier one and tier two members when you actually file for retirement and go to claim your pension. These three formulas are the names of the formulas are full formula, money match, and formula plus annuity. So as you can see on the slide here, full formula is an equation that considers three different variables. One is your years of service. So the longer that you work, the bigger this pension benefit will be. The second variable is your final average salary. So what PERS does is it takes the top 3 years of earnings and averages them out, and that classifies as your final average salary. And then they'll multiply that by a tier multiple, which for tier one and tier two is 1.67% for general employees and 2% for police and fire. The second equation that they will run for you is called money match. So how money match functions is the PERS system will match the balance of your tier balance, which is the combination of your regular account and your variable account. And once they match that balance, they run some calculations in the background and they calculate a pension benefit for you. Lastly, there's formula plus annuity. Formula plus annuity, we don't really see being a formula that is run for or that wins out for many PERS employees now, because it really only takes shape for PERS members who have service credit years in the early 80s or prior. So most of those people have retired now, and we don't typically see it being run. And then lastly, for OPSERT members, there's only one formula that is run for you when you retire. We don't have money match and there's no formula plus annuity. You'll recognize this formula that's run as the full formula from the previous slide. And it takes into consideration your years of service, your final average salary, and that multiplier, which for OPSERT members is slightly lower at 1.5% compared to the tier one and tier two multiplier of 1.67%. Moving on here, we just want to make sure, and we'll mention this a couple times throughout the presentation. The Oregon PERS website is just a wealth of knowledge, and it has a lot of really useful resources for you. One of these resources is the PERS benefit comparison that is listed in their PERS by the numbers report. It's on the website, but this page here will answer most all the questions that you have around the lunch table with your retirement benefits, and also reiterates all of the information that we just covered as far as the differences between your tier and how to make sure that you know when your normal retirement age is, as well as what your tier balance is as well. And then some other things to be aware of for your pension benefits. Your pension benefits will offer a cost of living adjustment. Now, this cost of living adjustment isn't going to tip or it isn't going to keep up with the rate of inflation that we've seen historically. It typically will be about 1% lower than what we've actually seen from cost of living adjustments, but it will increase on an annual basis after you claim, and it does depend on how large your benefit is, the as far as what that cost of living adjustment will be. And then just a couple of other things to be aware of with your tier balance and how that pension is calculated. We expect if you work your full 30 years and kind of how these equations work out for tier one and tier two members, that if you work your full 30 years, that you'll be replacing roughly 50% to 53% of your previous working wage through your pension benefit. And then as an OPSERT member, we see that number fall closer to about 45% of your previous final average salary working age. And, and one thing that you'll notice there is that that's not 100%. So you're going to need to make sure that we're saving in other ways or that we're maximizing our financial situation to make sure that when you retire, you have the income that you need to be able to live the lifestyle and kind of ride off into that retirement sunset that we all want for you. So next, we're going to have Kaylin. I'm going to pass the presentation over to Kaylin. She's going to talk about the IEP account and some of the changes that were made when it was introduced.
Thanks, Davis. Appreciate that. So I hope you all have a good idea of your tier and what that pension amount maybe looks like. Maybe you're calculating a quick number in your head as Davis was talking. In the end, we know we need to supplement that. And that is why the IAP was introduced. It stands for Individual Account Program and began back in 2004. And this was so that members could be saving on top of their regular pension. So this is the second part of your PERS. This is not your pension. This is a separate bucket of money. That money is getting directed from your salary to go into to supplement your monthly income you're getting from that pension. So prior to July 1st of 2020, essentially 6% of your salary is going into this. Again, we refer to it as a bucket of money, not the best descriptor, but it is a bucket of money, and that 6% is going in there and being invested for you to pull out when you retire. I'll talk about how that looks later as well. However, a couple of changes happened. So that 6% of your salary, you've probably seen it as a line item, but as of July 1st of 2020, the IAP redirect was introduced. And this redirect is essentially if you make over a certain amount every year, and it is indexed every single year based on CIP. If you make over a certain amount, right now it's $2,535 a month, then you will have a redirect. So 6% of your salary is still coming out. You're still going to see and feel the same adjustment. But if you're a tier one or tier two member, only 3.5% is actually going into your IAP. 2.5% is going to be going and redirected into your EPSA, your EPSA account, which I'll be talking about what that is in just a moment here. If you're an OPSERT member, 5.25% is going into your IAP and 0.75% is going into your EPSA. So that is what is currently happening ever since 2020 in July there. And what this means for us is essentially that we need to be supplementing our retirement even more, because even though you're still feeling that 6% on your salary, that percentage is not going into that bucket for you. And so if you were planning on that, if that was the plan to have that 6% additions to your bucket, we need to plan elsewhere. So the EPSA account, this is a stability account that's used to fuel your pension, the piece that Davis explained to us. This was created under that Senate Bill 1049. There's a lot of changes that got introduced under that bill. This is one of them. And this is used to pay for that future benefit. You will see it on your PERS statement. So now you'll see your regular account, you'll see your IAP, and then you'll see at the bottom your EPSA account. I like to tell my clients to ignore that bottom bucket, because that money is being fueled into your pension. And so the calculation that Davis was talking about, that is actually going to be your pension benefit. That EPSA account is just being used for PERS to help fuel that pension. So I like to tell clients to ignore it and focus on that IAP number. That is that bucket of money that you can roll over for future uses in retirement. Now, as I mentioned, there is ways to now supplement or make back that 2.5%, that 0.75% that you are no longer putting there. You can do after-tax member contributions to the IAP. There is some tricky situations there. So before you do that, I would consider a couple different options and really know what that looks like, because it does make retirement with some after-tax and pre-tax monies a little bit complicated. So I'd certainly ask your financial advisor, reach out to us if you have a question on that, because there is some options that we have seen that work a lot better. It depends on your situation, but again, certainly something you can do, and something that, as far as supplementing your retirement, we do want to do. There's a couple different ways to do so. So ask your financial advisor for that. As far as the IAP goes, the IAP is a bucket of money that is going to be invested. And in the past, this bucket of money was invested the same way if you were 25 years old or 65. But as of 2018, a great change was made, and now that it is automatically invested in an age-based portfolio. So this is good for us. That means that it's tracking more along with your goals and your age. It is based on an age 65 retirement. So if you are not in that time frame, if your horizon is a little bit shorter or longer, you can go in and adjust this as of September 2020 and make sure that's reflective of your plan. So if you need help doing that, they make it pretty simple on the website, but let us know. But what is good to know about this IAP target date is, and the IAP funds in general, is they are growing for you. We cannot adjust those investments other than the ways I just shared. So it's sitting there, it's growing. We get to be excited when we get that bucket of money, but we don't have any more control over it other than these couple little adjustments we can make. And then given that, now, again, I hope you know your pension, and then this is that second part of your PERS, your IAP. Now we're going to move on to what actually getting close to retirement means and what retirement through PERS looks. So Sarah, I'm going to throw it to you to talk about the benefit estimate and kind of our next steps there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kaylin. So this is where we start to take action, which is for most people very exciting because it means that they're getting close enough to be able to really think about seriously retiring from PERS. So this form is a paper form that requires your signature. It's a benefit estimate request. And this is something that we're able to submit to PERS when you are 24 months from being eligible. So it doesn't mean you want to retire necessarily in 2 years, but you're eligible to retire in 2 years. We can submit this to PERS, and we can submit 2 of these per year. If you submit more than that, then they charge you for that. But it really isn't necessary. The estimate request is, for anybody that comes to us and says, I want to retire, I need your help. The first question that we ask people is, have you submitted an estimate request? So this is something that you're able to do online as well with PERS. And Davis had mentioned earlier, the resources on the PERS website. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is to create a username and password on the PERS website. There's all kinds of information, but one of the things that you can do as well is you can run estimates for your retirement on the website. The thing that doesn't come with it, and we're going to talk about purchases in a little while, but what comes with your paper estimate that we are not able to do online, the paper estimate tells us how much different purchases cost. And again, we're going to explain that in a little bit, but also gives you the paper that you need to sign and submit with your retirement packet to be able to do that, to actually make those purchases. So it's necessary, mandatory, required to make sure that we have a paper estimate before we move forward with your retirement. The next thing that I would like to talk about so we know now how to get the numbers, and you'll receive the estimate in the mail, and depending upon when you're timing your estimate request. So for example, if I said I'm going to submit an estimate request today for a December 1st of this year retirement, I'll get my estimate in the mail pretty quickly. If I submit an estimate request for October 1 of next year, it's probably going to take a couple of months to get to me. It's not PERS priority. They're prioritizing people who are retiring sooner. So just want to make you aware of that. It doesn't mean they lost your request. It means that they're just taking their time. So then you get the estimate in the mail, and it has a lot of different numbers on it. And those different numbers means that you have an equal number of choices. So when you're looking at your estimate, it's going to show you what if I left all of my money with PERS, so a full annuity. You have options for tier 1 and tier 2 to actually not do that. One of those options is a lump sum. So there are two components for tier 1 and tier 2 of a lump sum. One is, we refer to it as your half and the state's half. They really aren't equal halves, but we'll use that example just for this purpose. But in any case, you have the option of taking one half out and receiving a fixed benefit from the portion that you leave in. And then you also have the option of taking it all out. And the caution that we would give people, and I say this not with that we're the best financial advisors in the world, which, we're pretty good. But there are a lot of financial advisors out there that do not understand PERS. They don't know how it works. And you want to be very, very, very careful. I would say that it is extremely rare that we ever recommend a lump sum or a total lump sum disbursement. And the reason for that is that PERS is a very generous defined benefit pension. We can't beat that with investments. And so that's why you want to tread very, very lightly when you're making these decisions. Going a little bit deeper, so now we know that we have options with full annuity lump sum and total lump sum, but then it gets into the weeds of how long do these pension options last and for whom? And so we start with the first one, option number 1. So you see these listed as non-survivorship options. And I do want to be very, very clear that when you are choosing a pension option, you get to make this choice one time. And so we really need to be sure that it's correct for you, your family, your financial situation. Option number 1 is going to provide the highest benefit. It is for your life only. So it stops when you stop. It, again, does not pass on to anyone else. And here's, again, a cautionary tale. If you receive one check and get run over by a bus, nobody gets anything. Not anybody in your family and not a charity that you care about. So you can tell by my tone, we want to be really careful if we're choosing option number 1. What does work, in my opinion, a little bit better for people who maybe don't have a spouse or a significant other. We're not trying to provide someone else with a retirement benefit for the rest of their life if we pass away. One is called the refund annuity. And the refund annuity essentially takes a look at how much money do you have in your PERS account. So like I was saying, your half and the state's half. What is the amount of money that's in there? The refund annuity, again, and if I didn't say this before, I apologize. All these options last for the member, whole life. So you can never outlive your benefit. If you live to be 120, you're still going to get your PERS benefit. With option number 1, we know it ends with your life. With the refund annuity, if you pass away, what PERS does is they look at what was your account value the day that you retired, both the state's half and your half. And if through the course of you receiving payments now as a retired person, you have spent all of that bucket, then when you pass away, there's nothing that goes on to anyone else. If, however, we use the scenario that I had mentioned before, you get one check and the bus comes for you, whatever is left in your account value will go to whomever you've chosen, and you can list as many beneficiaries there as you want. It can be a charity, it can be people, it can be whatever you'd like it to be. But that is really gives you assurance that your money does not just go back to the state when you pass away. The 15-year certain is the same type of idea, but as opposed to a lump sum going to your beneficiary when you pass away, it is a continuation of payments. So it means exactly what it says. So if I live to be 120, I will continue to receive payments for that whole time. But if I pass away within 15 years of retiring, so for example, I retire, I live for 5 more years, whoever I have named as beneficiary or beneficiaries, again, you can list as many as you want to, will continue to receive that same dollar amount on a monthly basis for 10 more years. So a total of 15 years of payments. So it really depends on what you're trying to do there. The second component to this are survivorship options. And this does mean we are trying to provide one other person with the continuation of some form of our payment for the rest of their lifetimes. So we already know, right, as we as members are going to receive the payment for the rest of our lifetime. But now we're accounting for one other person, and we want a payment to continue for the rest of theirs. Option number 2 is 100% survivorship. So I'm just going to use an example. Let's say that my benefit is $3,500 a month. If I pass away, my husband is going to get $3,500 a month for the rest of his life. When he passes away, it stops. Option number 2A, and you're going to recognize this is all about who dies and when, unfortunately. But 2A says if I pass away first, my beneficiary is going to get 100% of what I have been getting for the rest of their lifetimes. But if they die first, I shoot up to option number 1. So an A option, and we're going to see this, there's option 2A and there's option 3A. I would only choose an A option if there was a significant disparity in age between myself and my beneficiary, meaning they are much older than me, or health. They are more likely to pass away. So the 2A and the 3A sounds terrible, but you're essentially betting that that person is going to die first. Okay. The 3 and 3A, so option 3 says that when I pass away as the member, my beneficiary will receive 50% of what I had been getting. Option 3A says if I pass away first, my beneficiary will get 50% of what I had been getting. But if they pass away first, I shoot up to option number 1. So all of these really take a lot of thought and planning to make sure that we're thinking about your financial situation. What happens if you pass away? Do you have a spouse or significant other? Do they have a pension income? How much is their Social Security? There's a lot of thought that goes into this. Again, primarily because we get to make the choice one time. And so we want to make sure that it's correct. Now I'm going to flip it back to Kaylin, and she's going to tell us about, we talked about the defined benefit or pension option. She's going to go over what are we able to do with your IAP, because again, as everybody's explained today, they are two very separate things. So Kaylin, go ahead.
So the IAP does have beneficiary options as well, and different choices as well. However, it's a lot less complicated than your pension. There's just a couple options, but we only get to make the decision once. So we want to make the correct decision for you. The first option is a cash out option. You can take that bucket of money and completely cash it out. You will owe taxes on the full amount, and this will often launch clients into new income tax brackets. It can affect a lot of different pieces of your retirement, like your Medicare premiums. So it is really, really rare and almost never recommended that we cash this bucket out. I would be I really caution you to make sure if you're making that decision, it's for a very specific reason. But we almost never use that option, but it is available to you. So be cautious, but know it is available. Another is installment options. You can take that money and have income over 5, 10, 15 years set up in, essentially monthly installments. The other one is you can do a rollover into your IRA or into a qualified retirement plan, like your 403b, 457. Now, this option is often what clients will choose, often what most majority of people will choose, because we want to be able to take this income when we want it. Most people don't want to pay all those taxes up front and knock yourself into a new tax bracket, and we want to have control over those funds over time. So the other piece is most clients do not want PERS to have more control over their funds for a longer period of time, for longer than necessary. They would rather they get to control their money, they get to work with their advisor, etc., to make sure that that money is filling its purpose in our retirement plan. So that one-time rollover into your IRA or qualified retirement plan is often the choice that most people make, and often the one that we recommend. As far as other benefits for PERS go, when we are prepping for retirement, we want to make sure you can increase your pension as much as possible. And there's a couple ways we can do that through different purchases. So one of these is called refunded time or forfeited service. An example of this is if you are in the PERS system and if you're tier 1, tier 2, and you cash out your PERS, and then you come back to the PERS system and work, you have an option to buy back those missing times, that refunded time. And while it can be quite expensive, it is often very worth it. So it's certainly something you want to consider. Again, you can only make these choices one time. So certainly something you want to consider. On the benefit estimate that Sarah was sharing, there is a piece there that allows you to say, I would like to know what it will cost for that refunded time. We absolutely want to make sure we're getting that information. So if you're not filling it out with an advisor, make sure you have that piece in there so that you can get that dollar amount and know if that will increase that benefit, because often it'll increase that lifetime benefit and absolutely be worth it. With that, there's also waiting time. This is one you're probably more familiar with. This is a probationary period when you begin in PERS where you're not officially a PERS member. And this is going to be a set dollar amount that you're actually going to write a check to PERS for. When you retire, I like to tell clients that because I want them to anticipate different costs and things. So when we do that benefit estimate, we often recommend doing it, quite a bit. You can do it up to 2 years before, as mentioned. Quite a bit before, so we know that dollar amount that we need to buy back. It's often 6 months of time, 9 months of time we've seen, and buy back, and that will boost your years of service. So it's all about boosting that years of service times that final average salary. I know we're drilling some of the same things over and over, but if we can boost those years of service by buying back our refunded time, buying back our waiting time, we are going to boost our overall monthly amount. So that's certainly something that we want to consider and get the cost of so that we can make the right decision there. Out-of-state teaching and actually out-of-state police and fire as well is time that we can often buy. It's situation and state by state, so that's something we digger deeper on. If you are in some sort of situation like that, be sure to share past experiences. If you are in a seasonal position as well, so if you worked for the forestry department for a summer or something like that that's under a PERS covered position, we certainly want to look and see if purchasing that time back makes sense. Same with military service. PERS has that as a potential purchase as well. So be sure to include that if you have any military service time. And then disability time. This one's a little bit different. This is not necessarily a cost for disability. This is similar to applying for disability for Social Security. So if you are retiring because you've become disabled and you qualify for this PERS benefit, it's not necessarily a purchase. It is a lot of paperwork and going through the administration there. So that's something it's important to know that it's there, but it's one of those other things that can help you in retirement. Outside of purchases and all these different pieces that we can to increase, there's other benefits. So Davis, if you want to go ahead and switch my slide, thank you. So again, I mentioned disability retirement benefit. There's also in-service death benefits that PERS offers. So this is if you pass away before retirement, there is benefits that go to your beneficiary. It does depend on how these are paid out, depending if it's going to a spouse or a non-spouse beneficiary. But it's good to know that there is benefits there. There's also, PERS has a health insurance program. I'm going to double down on what Sarah said. Get your login, get your password, write it down somewhere safe. Get familiar with that PERS website. I think it really is helpful. There is a link in that website that goes to the PERS health insurance program, and you can see what you are eligible for and the cost. So when you're retiring and prepping for retirement, this is one of the biggest costs that people are planning for because of rising health insurance costs. So we encourage every single PERS member to go on, see what that cost would be and compare with outside sources, outside health insurance coverage, just to see what makes the most sense for you. But it can be a good option for some people. The last other benefit I wanted to talk about today is double dipping. And this is something that you've also probably heard before. In the past, double dipping, and by double dipping, if you're not familiar, it is when you are retiring from PERS, but you actually contract back and work for PERS. So then you'd be receiving not only your PERS benefit, but also your salary for your job or your compensation. Prior to Senate Bill 1049, you had limitations on how much you could work and how much, depending on your tier, how much you could work after retiring from PERS in a PERS essential position. So the nice thing is that that is no longer the case. So we don't have limitations. This is granted through 2033. So they could pull this back and we could have limitations starting then, but it could also get extended or be indefinite where there's not limitations on this. So you can retire from PERS and then work back. However, there are some considerations we absolutely want to take if we are making that decision. One of those is knowing that we are an at-will employee. So this means that we lose our seniority, and we can absolutely lose our position there if we have superintendent changes, if we have reorganization of employees and occupations. You do not have the same seniority, you're an at-will employee, so you can absolutely not have that job anymore. So when we're making that decision, we want to make sure we are prepared that if your position gets cut or whatever happens there, we are still okay with our retirement plan, our financial planning going forward. So that's something that we really want to make sure to emphasize when we are double dipping, but it's certainly a great way to build up a lot of your retirement accounts in those last years. So it's something you absolutely should be considering as well, and something that we like to calculate. As far as other benefits outside of PERS, I'm going to have Sarah take us through some of those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So as Kaylin was saying, there are a lot of things that we're considering with retirement. It is not just your PERS. There are a lot of other things that come into play to make sure that you're ready. And it's very important to us here at Firenze Wealth that our clients walk into retirement with confidence, not with a, gosh, I hope this works outlook. And so the things that we're talking about with our clients to make sure that everything is where it should be and that we're considering any costs as well as other sources of income. But we're talking about Medicare. Medicare is healthcare that starts at age 65. So just a good reminder is that prior to age 65, you have to cover the full cost of your health insurance from your retirement date or separation of service date from your employer until age 65. And then at 65, a lot of people think it's free, and it's not free. There's a cost involved in that as well. So we want to just be prepared for that with our planning. We also talk with our clients about Social Security and when is the appropriate time to draw. If we had a crystal ball and we knew when we were going to pass away, all these decisions would be very easy, but we don't. So we do a lot of number crunching and go through pros and cons about, if you're married, who should draw and when. What's the impact to a spouse when you pass away, and really talk through that. Again, that is a decision you can undo if you make it, but we want to go into it as correctly as possible. And then, as Kaylin mentioned, that PERS does not, and Davis did as well, does not cover 100%, does not replace 100% of your income. So how do we do that? We do that by the compulsory savings that goes into your IAP, but that still is not enough. And so then we need to save into other things. The burden of saving has been put on you. And so we can use tools like 403Bs, 457s, traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs, and those are all things that we help our clients with. We take all of these pieces of information and put it into a comprehensive retirement plan for you. So they are pieces and parts, and we do, as I mentioned at the very beginning, holistic financial planning. So we really, again, want to make sure that our clients are walking into retirement confidently. The advanced planning piece that we do for the clients that we work with goes a step further. So it's not just making sure that you're going to be okay in retirement. but it refers to estate planning. What do you want to have happen when you pass away with your accounts, with your home, with your assets, any other things that you might have? And so we really stress to our clients the importance of estate planning, having a will or a trust, and then working together with other trusted financial partners like an estate planning attorney, like a CPA, to make sure we're doing this all together and moving in the right direction for really what your wishes are for your families. So with that, we are going to open it up to questions. And I think, Elsa, you may have a few already that you've received.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. We do have a few questions here. Some of them are a little bit more particular to each individual person. We're going to kind of focus more so on the generic questions, but of course we went over a lot of information today, and if you do have any specific questions, you can reach out to your financial advisor directly. If you don't have a financial advisor, you can email us at info@firenzewealth.com, and we'd be happy to set up a free consultation for you and one of our advisors here. Again, we are all of our advisors here do specialize in PERS, so it's definitely something that we can help you out with. Well, to start off, Sarah, I know that you just did a lot of talking, but I'm going to pick on you first. The first question here is, when can I expect my first payment after my retirement date?
Great question. So a lot of people think that if their retirement date is July 1, that they should get a check in the month of July, and that will never happen. So the way that PERS approaches it is that they feel like they owe you money after that first month has been completed. So it's different than it is from your working career, but going into retirement. So again, I'm going to use that July 1 retirement date as an example. The first possible time that you could receive a check would be the first week of August. They technically have 92 days from your retirement date to get you your first check. And if it's not in the month of August, but ends up being in September, you'll get 2 checks, 2 months worth of checks. So you are going to be compensated for that time. But this is a reason that we really encourage our clients to be prepared to not receive a check in the first couple of months. So the pension piece is one thing, and then the IAP, if we're making the assumption that the IAP will be rolled over to an IRA, it generally follows right after that first pension check. So if that first pension check is coming, again, using July 1, say mid-August, then you get another letter in the mail that says that your IAP will also be processed shortly thereafter.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. Kaylin, I'll give this one to you. And Sarah did kind of touch on it briefly. When I retire, does my IAP roll over into my 403B? If not, what type of account can I roll it into?
Yeah, good question as well. So when we do elect to retire, we are going to fill out paperwork that is your choice of that IAP and where it goes. Yes, you can roll it over into your 403B. You can also roll it over into your 457. And most common, you can roll it over into an IRA account. And depending on your situation and what your goals and needs are in retirement, kind of depends on which account is best to roll it over into. So that's something at the time I would recommend they chat with their advisor and see what makes the most sense for their financial plan.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Davis, I'll give this one to you. I think I have some tier 1 and then some tier 2. How does that work?
Yes. Yeah, a super common question that we get. And just to clarify, you will only maintain one tier of PERS, which is dependent on when you were hired. So if you were hired before 1996, you'll be tier 1. If you're in between January 1996 and August of 2023 or 2003, you'll be tier 2. And if you're hired after that date, you'd be OPSERP. So you'll only be in one tier dependent on your hire date, even if you leave the PERS system. So you could be hired in 1990 and go work in the private sector or move to a different state, and then come back a couple decades later. You will still be a tier 1 member because that was when you established your original PERS membership.
Awesome. Thank you, Davis. Okay, Sarah, I'm going to pick on you one last time. Just for the sake of time, we're going to just do one more question here. Our district is paying 6% on our behalf into the PERS system. Is it wise to buy back the 2.5% that is not going into our PERS account?
This is a great question, and I'm glad whoever asked it, because it's a problem that we can't really fix. So you understand that the money is coming out of your paycheck, but it's being redirected, as we explained today, into the EPSA account, which is meant to help bolster your pension. And when I say bolster, I don't mean that your pension is bigger because of that EPSA account. It's just who's paying for it. So now you are also helping, in addition to your employer, pay for the pension piece. So my opinion is that I don't actually, in order to catch up, because we are falling behind, then less money is going into the IAP because of that change. I would not recommend putting more money into the IAP. I would recommend having it be something that is in your control solely, which would be a 403B or an IRA or a Roth IRA or a 457, but an account that cannot be messed with by PERS. So that is what we recommend for our clients. And I think we had mentioned earlier on the excess, if you do or have contributed extra money to the IAP, there's an issue with taxation later. And so it just makes it kind of messy. It's not, unsolvable, but it is something that we recommend. Keep it in your control.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, thank you everyone for submitting your questions. I know there were some that we didn't get to, but again, if you do have any additional questions, you can reach out to info@firenzewealth.com or directly to your advisor. There was a lot of information that we just went over. Here are some key takeaways that we have on the screen. But again, this is something that we specialize in, so you don't have to remember all the answers. We are more than happy to help you out and like we've mentioned before, give you confidence in your retirement. So thank you everyone for attending. Oh, sorry, we do have one more thing here. PERS website, again, is definitely a great resource to take advantage of. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but definitely create your account, get that username and password set up. It's extremely helpful. They have a lot of great information there. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. This has been wonderful. We hope that you have taken something new away, and we wish you the best with your PERS endeavors. Thanks everyone.